Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Aiden Grayson, a billionaire and privileged bachelor, faces a personal crisis as he becomes a target of blackmail linked to his tumultuous past. Assigned a new bodyguard, Julian McAndrew, Aiden initially sees their differences but soon experiences an undeniable attraction after a drunken kiss. As Aiden struggles with his reckless lifestyle and attempts to confront his feelings, Julian remains committed to safeguarding him from both external threats and Aiden's own self-destructive tendencies. The narrative explores themes of vulnerability, emotional turmoil, and the complexities of newfound relationships amidst danger. Chapter 1. Aiden's phone pinged for the fourth time in a row. He groaned and fished it out of his pocket, squinting at the screen. "Kyle, where are you? We're all waiting." "Kyle, this is so unprofessional, Aiden. Honestly. Kyle, you're making the company look bad." "Aiden, oh my God, stop whining." "Aiden, I'm literally on my way." It was a small miracle that Aiden even made it to work this morning, considering how wild his weekend had been. From sunrise to sunset, he had partied harder than he probably should have. Going big or going home was his motto, so it wasn't a surprise that he woke up with a pounding headache and an aching body. Still, business didn't wait for hangovers. If not for Kyle's endless calls and messages about today's meeting, Aiden would have still been fast asleep in his California king bed. "I need good news," he muttered, stopping by the floor secretary's desk as he made his way to the boardroom. "Please tell me the meeting's already started." "I'm afraid not, Mr. Grayson," Davina said politely. "They're all still waiting for you. Would you like me to let them know you've arrived?" "I guess," Aiden grumbled. "Now I'll have to sit through the whole thing." As the building owner, Aiden didn't bother knocking. He strode into the boardroom as if he owned the place, because he did, and gave a lazy nod to the attendees before dropping into the chair at the head of the long conference table. "Let's get this party started," he said, plastering on a half-hearted smile while adjusting his sunglasses. The bright lights inside made his eyes ache after the harsh sunlight outside. "I'd like to get through this quickly," he added to Kyle, his brother and business partner. "I have other places to be this morning." Back in his bed, most likely. Kyle lowered his head briefly in embarrassment. The three visitors sat stiffly, all silently judging the notorious Aiden Grayson, the brilliant yet unpredictable CEO of Grayson Enterprise, one of the country's top tech companies specializing in consumer electronics. The trio had come hoping for a lucrative deal, but as the seconds ticked by, they wondered if visiting had been a mistake. They'd heard stories about Aiden's volatile temperament, how he could swing from charming to abrasive without warning, but witnessing it firsthand was something else entirely. "Aiden, joining us today are Mr. Pryor, Mr. Wong, and Mrs. Scotts from Hope World Incorporated. I mentioned them to you the other day," Kyle said, pausing when Aiden didn't respond. Under the table, he nudged his brother's shin. Aiden jolted awake from a near nap, rubbing his leg and sitting upright. "Yeah, I know who they are. But why are we here, Kyle? Get to the point." Kyle gritted his teeth. "I called this meeting because I believe in Hope World and their mission. I saw some initial sketches for an upcoming project, and I think it would be wise for us to invest. Did you read the email I sent last week?" Aiden struggled to remember anything from last week, let alone the email. Briefly, yes. Kyle didn't buy it, but he pressed on. "With the two of us working together, we could dominate the market." Whoa. Let's pause," Aiden interrupted, finally serious. "We don't need anyone else to dominate the tech space. Grayson Enterprise is already doing that, and based on the numbers I saw before coming here, we're doing extremely well." Kyle's suggestion was meant to involve a multi-million-dollar collaboration. Aiden, despite his wild lifestyle, took protecting Grayson Enterprise seriously. One bad deal could undo decades of hard work by their father, Thomas Grayson. "How you vouch for these people makes me nervous," Aiden said, removing his expensive sunglasses and surveying the room. You see potential in them that I don't. And if they're really as good as you say, this collaboration could make them future competitors. Why should I help them take a shot at my position? Kyle opened his mouth, but Aiden cut him off. I don't need an answer. What worries me even more is that you seem to have forgotten Mr. Pryor's past scandal. I remember the rumors, the brushes with other companies, the stock issues. I may party hard, but my memory for business matters is sharp. Kyle froze. Everyone in the room sat in stunned silence. Normally, Aiden was quiet during meetings. Kyle had expected a quick signature and a smile, not a full-on interrogation. Yet here he was, confidently calling out past controversies. The irony was not lost on anyone. Mr. Grayson, you will always be the top dog in town. There's nothing to worry about when doing business with us, Pryor said, his tone overly flattering. His partners remained silent, clearly intimidated. Let's be honest, Mr. Pryor, Aiden said, leaning back in his chair. You're only telling me what you think I want to hear because you need funding. Personally, I don't care about the project you're pitching. My company was doing just fine before you walked in today, and it'll continue doing fine without a deal that clearly benefits you more than it does us. He stood up abruptly. I'm heading home. The guests did not appreciate that. Raised voices erupted behind him, forcing Kyle to juggle explanations and apologies while trying to calm them down. Meanwhile, Aiden was already halfway to the elevator. Mr. Grayson, a package arrived for you a few minutes ago, Davina called out before he stepped inside. I left it on your desk. It is better be food or something worth my time, Aiden muttered as he headed toward his office at the far end of the hallway. Inside, he spotted a small white gift bag on his desk, decorated with colorful balloons and filled with tissue paper. Aiden frowned. It wasn't his birthday, and he couldn't think of any reason he'd be receiving a gift. He tipped the bag over. An envelope and a black rectangular box slid out. Curious, he opened the box, only to freeze at the sight of a positive pregnancy test. Davina, get in here now. Hands trembling, Aiden dropped the test back into the bag and tore open the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. To Mr. Aiden Grayson, how did you like my surprise? I wish I could have seen your reaction, but it's too soon for you to know who I am. A man like you has so many companions that even if I told you my name, you probably wouldn't remember me. You'll never guess who I am, and that makes this even more entertaining. I have plans for you, Aiden. Big plans. And in the end, those plans could ruin you, unless you give me what I want, $5 million. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company, so I know you can manage it. Pay me, and you'll never hear from me again, and there won't be a baby arriving in the next 9 months. But if you refuse, I'll expose everything. Your reputation, your life, everything you've worked for. And when that's done, I won't stop there. Things could get messy. People you care about could get caught in the crossfire. But none of that has to happen, if you cooperate. Take some time to process this. Expect another letter with further instructions. In the meantime, watch your back, Grayson. Mr. Grayson? What's wrong? Davina rushed into the office just in time to see Aiden rush toward the wastebasket, where he began retching. Oh my goodness, are you all right? Who sent this? Aiden demanded, pointing at the bag. And please don't tell me it was just the delivery guy. But it was, Davina said softly. Who else would have brought it up? Aiden's sharp glare made her flinch. She knew he was about to direct all his stress at her, something she'd unfortunately experienced before. The salary was good, but moments like this made her question why she stayed. I don't know, Davina, he snapped. That's why I'm asking. Just give me a moment. Please. Davina stepped out, shaken. Kyle stormed in seconds later. What is going on in here? I heard you from the other side of the building. He shut the door behind him just as Davina passed with tears in her eyes. Aiden, seriously, why do you always take things out on people? And thanks for earlier, by the way. You handled that meeting exactly the way I feared you would. Poorly. If you had just... Read this. Aiden came around his desk and shoved the letter at him. Kyle blinked. For a moment, he couldn't recognize the expression on his brother's face. Wow, what happened to you today? Just read the letter, Kyle. Fine. Kyle unfolded the note, reading silently while Aiden paced the room. After a long minute, he let out a startled laugh. Wow. This is, congratulations. Aiden glared. Kyle, be serious. Do I look like someone who's prepared to become a father? Stop joking and tell me what to do. How should I know? Because you always help me figure out my messes. Use that smart brain of yours one more time. Aiden, Kyle said gently, take a breath and think. Logically. Maybe this isn't real. Maybe it's just someone trying to scare you. You've upset plenty of people over the years. A positive test is a guaranteed way to shock anyone. Aiden wouldn't say it out loud, but the fear settling in his chest was very real. This was his first ever pregnancy scare, and possibly the most serious situation he had ever faced. Maybe Kyle was right and someone was playing a cruel prank, or maybe Kyle was wrong and the test was real. Kyle sighed, already knowing what Aiden's next words would be. And you, Aiden said, pointing dramatically at him, my dear brother, are definitely helping me figure this out. Whether you want to or not. Chapter 2. Instead of regrouping with Kyle to figure out how to deal with the blackmail situation, Aiden had spent the past few days trying to drown his worries in solitude at home. He had always enjoyed the peace of living alone. His mansion was his sanctuary. But that calm was abruptly shattered by the persistent ringing of the doorbell. For once, can I just have a few days to myself? Aiden muttered, slamming his drink down before trudging to answer the door. He hadn't expected any visitors, and he especially hated unannounced ones. When he swung the door open, he froze. Standing on the porch were his parents and Kyle, all wearing concerned expressions. His father, as usual, looked less concerned and more judgmental, clearly unimpressed by his son's disheveled appearance. My goodness, you look awful, Thomas said bluntly. And your eyes, it's almost noon. How are you already exhausted? When's the last time you did anything besides drink? Or better yet, when did you last shower? I can smell you from here. A simple hello would have sufficed, Aiden shot back. Thomas ignored the remark and pushed past him, stepping into the house. Will you two ever get along? Lydia asked gently as she followed her husband. It's not me, Aiden muttered under his breath. It's Thomas. Aiden couldn't recall the last time he had called Thomas father or dad out loud. Their relationship had been strained for years, ever since Thomas forced him to take over the family business after retiring. It had always been Thomas's dream for Aiden to run the company he had built from nothing. But it was a dream Aiden had never shared. A few years after Aiden graduated high school, Thomas had given him a harsh ultimatum: learn the ins and outs of the business and take control of Grayson Enterprises or be cut off financially. Lydia had never liked her husband's approach, but she had offered little in the way of alternatives. At the time, Aiden's choice had been clear. He had been living carelessly, spending his days in indulgence with friends who shared his spoiled lifestyle. He had no goals, no plan, and unlimited access to his parents' money. It had been easy to adopt an I'll do whatever I want attitude. But Thomas's ultimatum changed everything. Losing his inheritance meant giving up endless parties, exclusive privileges, high-end luxuries, and the attention that came with wealth and charm. To keep his lifestyle afloat, Aiden had reluctantly agreed to follow his father's demands. Since then, out of pure spite, Aiden had made it his mission to frustrate Thomas at every opportunity. Was it childish? But he felt Thomas deserved it. Thomas wanted him to be the perfect CEO without ever considering what Aiden truly wanted. From the moment he was born, Thomas had tried to mold Aiden in his own image, grooming him for a life in the corporate world. The ultimatum had finally shattered the fragile cordiality between father and son. Aiden could still remember bits of Thomas's speech from that day. I've had enough of your nonsense, Aiden James. The way you've been carrying yourself is completely unacceptable. Your mother and I will not tolerate this behavior any longer. You've embarrassed the family and given the media too much entertainment. It's time to stop acting like a child. If you don't take responsibility, stop the partying, and step up to do what you were meant to do, I will have no choice but to cut you off indefinitely. Aiden had taken the threat seriously and straightened out, at least a little. Later, Thomas appointed Kyle as CFO to help balance Aiden's more carefree tendencies. Kyle had always been responsible, diligent, and loyal. From day one, he knew the company inside and out and had watched Thomas build it. Thanks to him, Grayson Enterprises had never collapsed despite Aiden's occasional missteps. Aiden made deals occasionally, but he was often just the face of the company. Kyle, on the other hand, ran the operations smoothly behind the scenes. Kyle was everything Thomas had wanted in a son, a fact that Aiden never failed to notice. And yet, despite the envy and tension, Aiden could never hate Kyle. They had been friends since 4th grade. After Kyle's parents had passed away, Aiden's parents had taken him in, keeping him from the foster system. Kyle became part of the family, and in many ways, a brother. In another life, Aiden often thought, if Kyle had been his biological brother, Thomas might have named him CO instead. "I'm going to take a guess and say they're here today because of you," Aiden muttered, glaring at Kyle. "You told them about the blackmail situation, didn't you?" Kyle didn't respond. Aiden groaned. "You did. I shouldn't even be surprised at this point. You always tell them everything about me." "What else was I supposed to do, Aiden?" Kyle finally replied, sounding apologetic. "You keep saying you want to figure this out, and yet you're here at home trying to drink your problems away. Someone has to take control of the situation if you won't." Aiden scoffed. "Yeah, whatever." "You really need help," Kyle continued gently. "The kind of help I'm not sure I can give. And right now, I don't think you can help yourself either." Aiden rolled his eyes. "If I wanted them to know what's going on, I would have called them myself, Kyle. You shouldn't have dragged them into this." Done arguing, Kyle walked inside without another word. Aiden slammed the door in frustration before storming into the kitchen where everyone else was gathered. "Your brother is just trying to look out for you," Thomas said with a scowl. "Stop being so stubborn and try being grateful for once." Aiden forced a smile. "Wow. Even with your age, your hearing is impressive. Eavesdropping is still rude, though." Lydia stepped closer, her expression soft but filled with worry. "Aiden, aren't you even a little concerned about what's happening? Someone is threatening you and claiming they're carrying your child. They're demanding millions. How can you be so calm? I don't understand." Her voice broke something inside him. Disappointing Thomas was nothing compared to hurting his mother, who had always wanted the best for him. Aiden cleared his throat, desperate to shift the mood. "Anyone want a drink? I have orange juice, apple juice." "Aiden, enough." Thomas's voice rose sharply. "Take this seriously. At least pretend you're concerned." "I am concerned when there's something real to worry about," Aiden replied coolly. "You already know this isn't the first time something like this has happened. It won't be the last. It's probably just someone upset that I ended things with her. I'll figure out who it is and deal with it. Simple." "Stop lying to yourself," Kyle snapped. "You have no plan. You don't even know where to start. Just admit you're overwhelmed and that you need help. That's why we're here." Thomas stepped forward, his expression firm but sincere. "You may think I don't care about you, but I do. And I refuse to take this threat lightly. No one goes after my family. If you won't act, then I will." Aiden raised a brow. "Okay, Thomas. Humor me. What exactly are you planning to do?" "I hired you a personal bodyguard," Thomas said. "Julian McAndrew. The best there is. If anyone can keep you safe, it's him." Aiden blinked. "I'm sorry, what did you say you hired me?" "A bodyguard," Thomas repeated clearly. Aiden's frustration erupted. "Are you serious? Do you think I'm 5 years old? A bodyguard? Really?" "Aiden, please don't fight him on this," Lydia pleaded. "It's for your own safety." Kyle added quietly, "Do you remember that night your car got shot at? You could have died." "But I didn't," Aiden snapped. "Because your previous bodyguard saved you," Kyle reminded him. "The one you fired without reason." Thomas stepped in again. "Julian and I have already arranged everything. He's fully briefed, and he'll stay with you until we find whoever's behind this. You should probably prepare a room. He's moving in." Aiden let out a disbelieving laugh. "Even at 26, you still treat me like a child. No one even asked me what I wanted. No one asked if I'm okay having some stranger in my house. I never agreed to this. Take your bodyguard back. I don't want him here. Thomas stormed up to him, gripping his shoulders, not harshly, but firmly enough to show he meant every word. I wouldn't treat you like a child if you'd stop acting like one. Aiden, listen to me. I love you. You are my son. And because I don't want anything happening to you, I hired someone to protect you. When this is over, you can let him go. But right now, you need protection. Julian stays. Aiden stared at him, trapped between anger, exhaustion, and the weight of everyone's expectations. Once again, he felt cornered, pressured, outnumbered, and like always, he gave in. Fine, Aiden whispered, defeated. Crystal clear. Chapter 3. Thomas informed his restless son that Julian McAndrew, Aiden's newly hired bodyguard, would be arriving any minute. He then insisted that Aiden clean himself up and at least look presentable. Aiden wanted to argue, but he was mentally and emotionally exhausted from yet another confrontation with his father. With no strength left to fight, he begrudgingly obeyed. As soon as their parents headed out the front door, Aiden muttered to Kyle, "Your ride is about to leave. It's nothing personal, but I really don't want company right now." "I'll go in a second," Kyle replied. "But first, I need to talk to you. It's important." He followed Aiden upstairs toward the bedroom. "If this is business-related, save it," Aiden grumbled. "I don't want to hear anything about Grayson Enterprises right now. Thomas has backed me into a corner with this whole bodyguard situation, and he didn't even let me say what I truly felt. Apparently, I don't get a say in my own life." He paused, inhaling deeply before exhaling slowly. "I'm one step away from losing it today." "If you'd stop talking for a minute," Kyle said, sounding slightly irritated, "I could tell you this isn't about work. It's about the blackmailer." They entered Aiden's bedroom just as he started undressing to shower. Kyle sighed. "Aiden, can you please wait until I leave before you do all that?" "Stop being so uptight," Aiden said, rolling his eyes. "Now, what's the news? Did another package get delivered? Did you find out who's behind all this?" "No, nothing like that," Kyle replied. "I just got a text from my friend Carla. She works for Little Town magazine. She said one of their writers is about to publish a very damaging article about you. They got a tip from an anonymous source claiming you're a drug and, well, a party addict." Aiden laughed lightly. "I've had worse things said about me." "I know," Kyle said, "but this time they have photos, Aiden." He pulled out his phone and handed it over. Aiden's smile faded. "Oh, wow." The picture was clear, uncomfortably clear. There he was in what looked like a nightclub, maybe even a strip club, completely intoxicated. Women with blurred faces surrounded him, clinging to him. His eyes were glazed, and he was looking directly into the camera, one hand raised in a rude gesture, his tongue out with two tiny white pills resting on it. It was undeniably him. Aiden swallowed hard. "I don't remember anything about that night. It's all a blur." "No surprise," Kyle muttered, pocketing his phone. He ran a hand through his blonde hair in frustration. "You were obviously out of it. Now I need to fix this before it spreads everywhere." "That picture could have been taken years ago," Aiden said. "Back when I went through phases. It doesn't even have to be recent." "Maybe," Kyle said, "but it's too late. Little Town is publishing the article online in less than 20 minutes. I've already tried everything, talking to them, offering compensation, but they won't pull the story. I need to get to the office after this and prepare a statement. The media is going to run wild with this." Feeling overwhelmed, Aiden sank onto the edge of his bed. He was still too tipsy for bad news, especially this kind. Everything was happening too fast. The threat, the bodyguard, the article. Problems were piling up one after another, and he felt like he was drowning. "Do you think it's her?" Aiden asked quietly. "The woman blackmailing me. Could she be behind this too?" Kyle nodded. "It's too perfect of a coincidence. The timing lines up. I'm sure it's the same person." Aiden clenched his jaw. "Whoever she is, she has a lot on me. The real question is, how much more? What else does she have? What else could she leak?" He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. This is unbelievable. Did Little Town really tell you nothing about who sent the tip? They shut me down every time, Kyle said. Something about protecting their sources. Legally, we can't force them to reveal anything. Aiden stared at him sharply. Kyle, you need to handle this. Because if you don't, I will. And trust me, you don't want me going down there myself. Kyle's patience finally snapped. Calm down, Aiden. I'll take care of it, like I always do. He exhaled sharply and moved toward the door. Just stay low until we get a handle on this. I'll keep you updated. Yeah, do that, Aiden muttered as Kyle walked out of the room. Left alone, Aiden sank deeper into the mattress, his thoughts spiraling. Everything was falling apart. Aiden eventually made his way into the shower, struggling to keep his emotions in check. He hadn't meant to be harsh with his brother, one of the few people who truly had his back, but with everything going on, it was almost impossible to stay calm. He had never been good at handling things quietly or rationally. When pressure built, he exploded, lashing out at whoever was nearby. Apologizing wasn't something he did easily. When I find this woman, she'll regret ever messing with me, he thought, letting the warm water wash over him. He tried to focus on something else, a distraction. Maybe a daydream about someone, anyone, just to take his mind off the chaos. Before he could get too carried away with his thoughts, the water started to cool. Then the doorbell rang. It had to be Julian McAndrew. Thomas must have given him the code to get past the gate. Aiden stepped out of the shower, dried off as best he could, and wrapped a towel around his waist. He pushed back his dark hair, wishing he looked more put together, though he wasn't in the mood to put on real clothes. Who am I trying to impress? He wondered. Certainly not a bodyguard. With a scowl, he trudged downstairs, muttering to himself about the absurdity of having a live-in protector. Hesitant, he opened the door and froze. He had expected a tough, no-nonsense type, a muscular ex-Marine with a glare that could cut glass. Instead, he was face-to-face with someone who could have been just a few years older than him. Julian McAndrew was striking, handsome, confident, and composed. Aiden wasn't sure whether to feel annoyed or insecure. Julian stood about 6 feet tall, a few shades darker than Aiden, with olive-toned skin and a clean, well-kept appearance. His dark brown hair and warm brown eyes were complemented by a friendly smile. The faint shadow of stubble and his muscular build suggested experience and strength without intimidation. Julian's presence was calm, reassuring, yet it was clear he wasn't someone to be challenged physically. "Hi, I'm Julian McAndrew," he said, flashing a confident smile. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Mr. Grayson." Julian had heard of Aiden. His work at Grayson Enterprises, his reputation, the stories from both the tabloids and corporate circles. Standing here now, though, Julian was slightly underwhelmed. Aiden wasn't intimidating, but he had an undeniable charm. His green eyes and slightly mischievous smile gave him a look that was hard to forget. "Your father has already told me quite a bit about you," Julian continued, hoping to ease the tension. "I feel like I already know you. Oh, and your mailbox was overflowing, so I went ahead and sorted it for you." He handed Aiden the stack of mail. Aiden's thoughts darted all over, still processing Julian's presence. He took the mail, their hands brushing slightly, sending a brief shiver up his spine. "You all right, Mr. Grayson?" Julian asked, noticing the distracted look in Aiden's eyes. Why? I'm fine. Just a little tired," Aiden said, forcing a laugh. He gestured to the living room. "I guess you can come inside once you've got your things." "Sure," Julian replied with a quiet laugh. "I just need to grab a few things from the car and then I'll be right in." Aiden nodded and quickly turned away, still shaken by the encounter. Julian chuckled to himself as he walked back to his car. This is going to be interesting. Chapter 4. It took Aiden a few minutes to collect himself after that awkward first encounter with his new bodyguard, Julian McAndrew. Once he got dressed, he poured himself a small drink from his bar, hoping it would calm the nerves that Julian had unintentionally rattled. Then, deciding to make the best of the situation, he offered to give Julian a tour of the mansion. "You must get lonely living in such a big house by yourself," Julian said as they stepped into the backyard. which featured a spacious lawn and a rarely used pool. I know I would. I have to admit, I do like this neighborhood, though. Only downside is how quiet it is. I grew up in the city, I'm used to constant noise. Aiden didn't notice it at the time, a little distracted and buzzed, but Julian had been observing him closely since his arrival. Julian was an extremely perceptive man and had already started forming impressions of his new boss. Aiden might drink too much. So far, he'd only seen him consume hard liquor, and he wondered how much it might be affecting him. Aiden was sensitive and easily flustered. Compliments, even casual attention, made him blush in ways Julian found oddly endearing. Aiden wasn't much of a talker. Unlike most wealthy clients Julian had worked for, who loved bragging about their fortunes, Aiden was surprisingly low-key. "What about you?" Julian asked. "Have you always lived around here?" "No," Aiden replied. "I grew up in the city too. But I moved here to escape the noise. I liked the quiet. Well, I did until you arrived and invaded my personal space." Julian chuckled. "None taken." "I don't mean to be rude," Aiden added. "I know it's not your fault you're moving in and watching over me like I'm helpless. Please don't feel like you have to treat me that way. I'd rather you didn't." Julian nodded. "Of course, whatever you prefer." "Honestly, you can blame Thomas for this mess," Aiden sighed, mentally cursing his father. "If I seem irritable, it's him, not you." Julian made a mental note. Daddy issues, he thought. "Okay, then," Aiden said, turning to head back inside. "Let's go upstairs so you can pick which room you want." Julian followed, taking one last glance around the main floor. "So, this might be a weird question, but do you have a housekeeper?" Julian asked, impressed by how clean and organized the mansion was. He had expected chaos, a playboy's mess of empty bottles, scattered papers, and leftover party decorations. "No housekeeper," Aiden said, curious. "Why do you ask?" No reason," Julian replied, shrugging. "You wouldn't ask if there wasn't a reason," Aiden pressed. "Just say it if you have something to ask or point out. I'm an open book." Julian smiled faintly, suppressing an eye roll. "I guess I just didn't expect a house like this from someone with your reputation. I assumed, wrongly, that it'd be chaotic." Aiden laughed. "I'm a lot of things, Julian. But messy isn't one of them." Julian was relieved Aiden hadn't taken offense. "How did Thomas find you?" Aiden asked as they reached the top of the stairs. "I know people know about me. Not many would take this job, watching me 24/7. I imagine he's paying well." "He is," Julian said. "I've never worked for your father before. I don't know exactly how he found me or why he chose me. You'd have to ask him." Aiden nodded, leading Julian down a long hallway. "Down there is the bar. If you can't find me, I'm probably there." Julian noticed the casual way Aiden referenced his drinking, understanding it was more of a coping mechanism than a habit to brag about. "The other rooms up here are bedrooms," Aiden continued, pausing near the last room. "That one's for my workout equipment, though I never use it." His eyes flicked to Julian's muscular build. "Seems like you work out a lot. Feel free to use it if you want." Julian smirked slightly but kept his focus ahead. "Thanks. So, which room do you want?" Aiden asked. "They're all basically the same, king-sized beds." Julian picked the room across from Aiden's. "I'll take this one." Aiden forced a smile, feeling Julian pushed the boundaries of personal space a little too far. "Not a problem," he said, though the grin didn't reach his eyes. "I didn't see you bring many bags," Aiden observed. "Where's the rest of your stuff?" "It's still at my place," Julian said politely. "I'll retrieve it later. Your father wanted me here as soon as possible, so I didn't have much time to gather everything." "I'm not going anywhere right now," Aiden said. "Do whatever you need to. And drop the formalities, just call me Aiden. You're going to be here a while, we should get comfortable." Julian shook his head politely. "I'm sorry, but I'm not comfortable using first names in this situation. I hope you understand." Aiden narrowed his eyes. "Then what am I supposed to call you?" "McAndrew." "You may call me whatever you want." "I have no preference," Julian replied calmly, unfazed by Aiden's scowl. "Am I free to settle into my room now?" Aiden muttered, Fine. Just drop the mister and call me Grayson, before retreating to his bedroom, slamming the door behind him. Julian chuckled quietly to himself. This is going to be interesting. Chapter 5. A few hours later, Kyle finally called with an update. Listen, I know you're going to hate this, but unless you want the media all over you, I suggest staying inside for the next few days until the heat from Little Town's story dies down, Kyle said. I'm sorry I couldn't stop them from publishing. The good news is I sent out a neutral statement, not claiming or denying the photo, so if anyone asks, just stay quiet and don't comment. Play it cool, okay? Yeah. I hear you, Aiden mumbled. I'll stay quiet. Don't forget, okay? Stay inside. Do not go out and do anything that draws more attention. I'm not trying to. I'm sorry, what? I think the connection's breaking up. Can you hear me? Hello. Aiden laughed, knowing nothing was wrong with the call, then hung up. Sorry, brother. I love you, but you can be really annoying sometimes. Later, stretched out on his bed after a much-needed nap, Aiden began going through the stack of mail Julian had brought in when he first arrived. Something's not right with that guy, Aiden muttered to himself. Nobody is that polite. Literally nobody. He felt a nagging curiosity about Julian. There was something more beneath the calm, observant exterior, something he couldn't quite figure out. He would have to ask Kyle to run a discreet background check, just in case. Then, tearing open a plain envelope, Aiden froze. Another letter from his anonymous blackmailer. The second letter read, Dear Mr. Grayson, how did you like the story I put out about you? I timed this so you'd receive it the same day the news broke. Just so you know, I have more information I could release if I wanted. Hopefully, you see it's in your best interest to do what I say. I bet it frustrates you not knowing who I am. Even if I told you, you probably wouldn't figure it out. I never expected to care for you, but then things changed. I had to make difficult decisions, and everything about us left a mark. I know this might sound harsh, but it's how I feel. I'll provide more details about what I want from you soon. Until next time. Aiden crumpled the letter and tossed it across the room, his pulse racing. He hadn't felt this on edge in years, not since his first day as CEO. The woman had successfully gotten under his skin. Just then, he heard a commotion at the door. Objects being moved, raised voices. It was enough to make anyone panic. Julian had returned from retrieving the rest of his belongings and, hearing the noise, grabbed his gun instinctively before rushing upstairs. Grayson? Are you all right? Julian asked, entering cautiously. He found no intruder, only Aiden pacing and muttering to himself. Could you maybe knock next time? Aiden snapped, a mix of frustration and embarrassment in his voice. Unfazed, Julian kept his composure. Are you okay? What's going on? I heard yelling. I'm fine, sort of, Aiden whispered, his anger softening. Just having a moment. Julian stayed by the door. Did your blackmailer contact you again? Aiden hesitated, then nodded toward the crumpled letter on the floor. Yes. She has. He sank to the edge of the bed, exhausted and tense, holding his head in his hands. She's good at hiding herself. I've been waiting for her to slip up, but she hasn't. I might have to pay her off just to get her to leave me alone. Julian frowned but didn't speak immediately. He couldn't deny feeling sorry for Aiden, even if he'd caused his own troubles. Seeing the usually confident young CEO looking so vulnerable stirred something protective in him. I might have a way to catch her, Julian said carefully, moving closer. I'm not promising it'll work, but it's worth trying. Aiden's green eyes lit up with hope. Really? What is it? I know someone in forensics who owes me a favor, Julian explained. If the letter is handwritten, we might be able to lift fingerprints. One step closer to finding out who your blackmailer is. Aiden's face brightened with relief. That's perfect. Thank you, Julian. I know you don't have to do this, but I really appreciate it. No problem, Grayson. I'm happy to help, Julian replied with a small smile. I'll make the call after I bring in the rest of my things. We can head out after that. Yeah, that sounds good. Take your time, Aiden said, secretly wondering if Julian's kindness was starting to rub off on him. And if he was honest, Aiden knew he felt the same way about Julian. Chapter 6. After Julian had settled all his belongings into his new room, he called Lance Joyner, a forensic scientist, old friend, and former partner, to see if he could help uncover Aiden's anonymous blackmailer. Lance never refused Julian, so he happily agreed to meet them at his office later that day. Julian, however, wasn't thrilled about seeing his ex again. It had been nearly 3 months since he and Lance ended their year-long relationship. This would be the first time they'd seen each other since. "Are you ready?" Julian asked after checking in on Aiden in his bedroom. "Why, sure. I'm ready," Aiden stammered, feeling slightly guilty. He had just texted Kyle to run a background check on Julian, even though his father had already done one. "Lead the way." "You have the letter, right?" "Yeah, it's in my back pocket," Aiden replied. He glanced at Julian's suit and smirked. "Should I always expect you to dress in fancy suits when we go out? I feel like I should change out of my casual clothes." Julian chuckled. "Stop it. You look fine. Most of the people I work for prefer me in a suit. It's more appropriate than jeans and a t-shirt, especially when I might need to accompany you somewhere formal. People need to know I'm your bodyguard, not just a friend." "I get it. Dress however you want, just try not to outshine me," Aiden teased playfully. "So, you always carry that?" "Yes. Whenever we go out, I'm always armed," Julian said, showing Aiden his gun. "It's required for my safety and yours." "Have you ever had to use it?" Aiden asked curiously as they walked toward Julian's bulletproof SUV. "Once," Julian admitted. "The other person was armed and threatened someone I was protecting. I had to act." It had been years ago, when Julian was still a rookie. It was the only time he had fired his weapon in the line of duty. Since then, he had taken his work very seriously. "Did anyone get hurt?" Aiden pressed. "No. I aimed to disarm, not harm. He dropped the gun, I restrained him, and the police handled the rest," Julian explained. "You seem intrigued. Why?" "I don't know. It just sounds exciting. Dangerous, but exciting. I guess I thought your job would be boring. Is there ever a dull moment?" "Sometimes, but not often," Julian replied. "Most assignments involve some kind of action, at least occasionally." Aiden found himself relaxing slightly. Despite the earlier tension, talking with Julian was easier than he expected. Julian was straightforward and answered questions honestly. No pretense, no ego. "Be honest," Aiden asked after a while. "How good is this guy you're taking me to see? You say he's your friend, so I assume you trust him." "Lance Joyner is excellent at what he does. If he weren't, I wouldn't bring you to him," Julian said. "Trust me, he can handle this problem." Aiden didn't know Julian well enough to fully trust him yet, but he remained silent, focusing on the road as his nerves picked at him. He worried, questioned, and fretted, unsure of what would happen if Lance couldn't help. About 30 minutes later, they arrived at Lance's office. Something shifted in Julian's usually composed demeanor as he parked. Aiden noticed but didn't comment. They entered the minimalist-styled building, and on the way to Lance's office, Julian was stopped and greeted by several women, none of whom paid Aiden any attention. "You're popular here," Aiden whispered, nudging Julian. "It's a long story," Julian said lightly. Most were just acquaintances connected to his past with Lance. Finally, they arrived at Lance's office. "Get the letter out. I'll handle the talking," Julian instructed. Confused by Julian's urgency, Aiden complied, pulling the envelope from his back pocket. Julian tapped on the door. Lance opened it immediately, a bright smile spreading across his face. Without hesitation, he pulled Julian into a hug, one that Julian did not return. Julian felt mortified. Lance felt embarrassed. And Aiden was utterly confused. Aiden wasn't sure where Lance had grown up, but in his world, men rarely embraced each other like that. Typically, greetings involved handshakes, not full-on bear hugs like they were long-lost friends. Lance's enthusiastic embrace made Aiden stare longer than was probably appropriate, curiosity and a dozen unasked questions swirling through his mind. "Act professional, Lance. I'm here on business," Julian whispered sharply, gently pushing his ex away to properly introduce Aiden. "This is Mr. Grayson, my boss and the person who needs your help today." I'm sure you know who he is, so it's crucial that this meeting stays confidential. Understand? You know I'm not a gossiper, Julian. I don't need the lecture, Lance said, meeting Julian's eyes. He felt a pang at Julian's coldness, at how unaffected he seemed, wondering if Julian had already moved on. Come on in, both of you. Wow, nice place, Lance, Aiden said, wide-eyed as he stepped into the hybrid office lab. He looked like a kid in a candy store, his hands reaching for a glass flask filled with a light blue liquid before Julian yanked him back to his side. Easy, Tiger, Julian said. I was only looking, I swear, Aiden chuckled. Julian released him with a roll of his eyes and refocused on Lance. Facing him wasn't as easy as Julian expected. Lance looked good, better than Julian remembered, and those striking blue eyes, they were still captivating, even if not quite as bright as he recalled. Mr. Grayson has been receiving harassment from an anonymous woman, Julian explained. She contacts him through handwritten letters, and we hope you can help lift her fingerprints from them. Can you do that? I can certainly try, Lance replied. How many people have handled the letter so far? Only me. Aiden handed over the envelope. That won't be a problem, right? You'll be able to tell the difference between my prints and hers. Yes, Lance muttered as he returned to his desk. Julian noticed Aiden's curiosity but kept his expression neutral. It hurt to be so cold toward Lance, but he didn't want to give mixed signals. Julian cared for Lance, but their relationship was in the past. It was time to move on. Before I start, I'll need to take your prints, Mr. Grayson, unless you're already in the system. Have you ever been fingerprinted before? Lance asked. Arrested long ago. I was young and reckless, Aiden admitted, looking a little embarrassed. My dad thought a weekend in lockup would straighten me out, I guess. And did it work? Julian chuckled. Not really, Aiden smirked. I'm still me, just older. Lance shifted uncomfortably, sensing the closeness between the two men, and quickly moved on. It should take a few hours to test the letter and see if any usable prints remain. If I can get a match, identifying your blackmailer shouldn't take much longer once the prints go through the system. If she's not in the database, it might take a couple more days. That works for me, Aiden said. I appreciate you doing this on such short notice, Mr. Joyner. I'll send payment. No need, Mr. Grayson. You're a friend of Julian's, so this is on me. Aiden noticed Lance's curiosity at their interactions, wondering if there was more between Julian and him. But he didn't press, he'd find out soon enough. Can we talk privately for a moment, Julian? Lance asked. Excuse us, Grayson? Julian said apologetically. It'll only be a minute. Sure, Aiden replied, stepping into the hallway and closing the glass door behind him. Through the thick glass, he watched Julian and Lance enter what appeared to be a very intense discussion. Though he couldn't hear the words, their body language was unmistakably charged. Aiden speculated silently. Lance had been unusually touchy earlier, and Julian had rejected his hug. Why was Lance acting that way? And why did Julian seem so careful? He squinted, trying to make sense of it. Could Lance be attracted to Julian? And Julian? Before he could ponder further, Julian stormed out of the office, looking tense and ready to burst. Lance followed shortly after, equally agitated. Aiden didn't want to push Julian further by asking questions, so he remained silent, watching them disappear down the hallway. Chapter 7. Despite Kyle's warning to lay low for a few days, Aiden continued doing whatever he pleased, paying little attention to his brother's advice. Hey, before we head home, how about we stop somewhere to grab a bite? I'm starving. How about you? Aiden asked, leaning back in his seat. Yeah, I guess I could eat something. Do you have somewhere in mind? Julian mumbled from the driver's seat, his thoughts still tangled up with Lance and their heated conversation earlier. He couldn't shake the way Lance had accused him of having a personal, perhaps even romantic, relationship with Aiden. Julian had explained over and over that nothing was going on, they were strictly professional. Yet somehow, Lance had twisted their chemistry into something much more. Julian still found himself shaken by it. Aiden, oblivious to Julian's internal turmoil, smiled slyly. I don't have a preference. Surprise me. I'm in the mood for something fried and greasy. Julian raised an eyebrow but smiled. Well, in that case, I know the perfect place to fatten you up fast. Wow, talking about my weight now, huh? Not everyone's built like the Terminator, you gym rat, Aiden teased, earning a stifled laugh from Julian. You really think I'm built like the Terminator? Julian chuckled, nearly doubled over. Well, it's good to know my time in the gym has been paying off. Thanks for the compliment, Grayson. You just made my day a little better. Aiden grinned. Glad I could help. After a few more moments of laughter, Aiden's expression softened. So, what exactly made your day so rough? You seemed fine before we went to see Lance. Did something happen between you two? Julian tensed slightly. Tread carefully, playboy. Not now. Honestly, I'd rather not talk about it. It's personal. Oh, okay, I understand. Aiden didn't push further, choosing to respect Julian's privacy. A short while later, they pulled into a small, quiet diner. The parking lot had only a few cars, and inside, mostly elderly patrons were scattered across the booths, hardly anyone who would recognize Aiden or alert the press. It seemed like a safe spot to relax for a bit. Okay, but we shouldn't stay too long, Julian said as they exited the car. I got a text alert about you earlier. And yes, I know about the story Little Town published. Thanks for keeping me in the loop, he added sarcastically. Aiden blushed, a reaction that had become more frequent since Julian's arrival. I meant to tell you, but it slipped my mind. You have a lot on your plate right now. I'm not mad, but we need to be on the same page. Extremely careful. Discreet about where we go, who we talk to, until your blackmailer is caught. One wrong move and this place could get swarmed. Alright. 10, maybe 15 minutes, tops, Aiden said, though his eyes immediately caught a cute brunette sitting alone near the back. A mischievous grin spread across his face. Make that 30 minutes, and the tab's on me. Order whatever you want. Julian rolled his eyes but didn't stop Aiden as he sauntered over to the lone woman's table. After everything that had happened that day, he decided to give his boss a little freedom. Julian took a seat and pulled out his phone, calling one of the few people who truly knew him, Cassie Day. Wow. Great minds think alike. I was just about to call you. Cassie answered, her tone playful. Before you say anything, I need details about this new boss of yours. 1. How's Aiden treating you? 2. Have you, well, you know? Julian laughed, shaking his head. Cassie, keep it PG. We're just eating at a diner. Having missed her candidness, Julian laughed. Slow down, Cass. You know I've never hooked up with any of my bosses, and I'm not starting now. Besides, Grayson isn't really my type. Cassie's tone turned serious. Julian, I know you well enough to tell when you're lying, even without seeing your face. Don't lie to me now. Julian felt his face heat up as he glanced at Aiden's table, catching the young Sylph flashing one of his signature charming smiles at the woman he was trying to impress. Julian shivered at the thought of being in her place. I mean it. It's cute, I guess. But not really my type, Julian clarified. And oh God, he can be so frustrating sometimes. We've only known each other a short while, but he's supposed to be dealing with this anonymous blackmailer, yet here we are at a diner, and instead of worrying about his safety, he's flirting with someone he just met. It's mind-boggling. Julian realized too late he had probably overshared with his best friend. Ugh, he muttered. Forget I said any of that. No one's supposed to know. Cassie shrugged. Honestly, I don't really care about Aiden. I'm more concerned about you. You say you haven't known him long, yet you sound passionate when you talk about him. Don't tell me you've caught feelings already. Cass. Hey, no judgment. I just mean, you and Lance were a thing until a few months ago. Don't rush into anything. Julian shook his head. Calm down, it's not like that. And before you jump on me, remember, he's straight. Cassie smirked. Darling, even straight poles can bend if you try hard enough. They both burst out laughing, breaking the tension. All right, enough about me and my boss. What's going on with you and Sabrina? Julian asked, shifting the focus. Cassie sighed. We broke up. I really liked her, but it was too complicated. She drove me crazy. That's what you get for dating a 22-year-old, Julian teased. Anyway, when are you visiting me? I've missed you. It's been lonely since Lance and I split. I definitely need a break from work, Cassie said. I might use some vacation days to come see you. You'll have time for me, right? My schedule is always open for you, beautiful. They continued chatting as Julian ate, losing track of time. About 30 minutes later, it was time to leave. Julian paid for their meals, and when he glanced at Aiden, his mouth fell open. Aiden was now surrounded by 3 women, the brunette in the middle of 2 blondes, all laughing at his jokes. Julian's patience thinned instantly. This was exactly the attention Aiden didn't need right now. Feeling Julian's stare, Aiden turned to see him frowning from across the diner. He excused himself from the trio and approached Julian. The blondes are gorgeous, right? I put in a good word for you, Aiden said with a grin. They're totally into you. Think you can handle them? Julian glared at the women before returning his attention to the playboy in front of him. Grayson, it's a hard pass. Now, gather your friends so we can go home. Aiden laughed. Wait a minute. They're beautiful. How can you not be excited? Excited? No, that's not the word I'd use. Julian held Aiden's hand against his chest, staring into his green eyes. We clearly have different tastes. You've been too busy thinking about who to chase next to notice the signs about me. Aiden blinked, confused. The signs? What does that mean? Nothing. Forget it. Julian released his hand. Now gather your friends. You have 5 minutes. I'll be waiting in the car. Aiden watched Julian leave, then clasped his hands together, dazed and confused as his pulse raced. Yeah, he murmured to himself. Different tastes, I guess. Chapter 8. As soon as Aiden woke up, he wasted no time in calling a cab for the ladies from last night, after making sure they signed non-disclosure agreements about the wild evening, sending them safely on their way home. He then showered and got dressed, checking his phone to see what he'd missed. Calls, texts, and emails flooded his screen, but he scrolled past most of them until he found what he was looking for. Finally, Kyle had sent over the background check Aiden requested on Julian. Flipping through the report, Aiden felt slightly disappointed. Kyle had only included the basics, nothing particularly revealing. Julian McAndrew remained an enigma. He doesn't even have a middle name? Seriously? Aiden muttered, tossing his phone aside. Looks like I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way, get to know him myself. Just then, Julian entered the kitchen with a polite grin. I see you sent the trio off bright and early, he remarked. I'm glad. They would have eaten me out of house and home. I only made breakfast for 2. I hope you're hungry. Starving, Aiden replied, grabbing a glass for juice. He paused at the refrigerator. Would you like something to drink? I have orange juice, apple juice. I'll have what you're having, Julian said with a small smile. Aiden poured the drinks and handed Julian his glass. If he wanted to learn more about Julian, he'd have to play it smart. So, I'm a little overdressed for breakfast, Julian joked, letting his eyes sweep over Aiden. Despite his lean frame, Aiden had visible muscle, and Julian caught himself staring a bit longer than he should have before looking away. Sorry, still waking up, Aiden said, sitting down and passing Julian his drink. If I'm making you uncomfortable, I can eat upstairs. You're fine, Grayson. This is your home, where whatever you want, Julian replied, smoothly changing the subject. After staying up with your guests, you actually look well rested. Better than last night, honestly. Thanks. I'm sober today, Aiden chuckled. Sorry about last night. The girls didn't seem too rowdy though. Julian suppressed a smile. You've definitely got an appetite. He felt a pang of guilt about his attitude at the diner yesterday. He had let Aiden get under his skin. To make up for it, Julian had prepared a big breakfast. Watching Aiden dig in with obvious enjoyment, Julian felt a quiet satisfaction. This is really good, Aiden said, speaking with his mouth full. I haven't had anything this fresh in a while. What else can you cook? I know my way around the kitchen, Julian said modestly. But nothing fancy. This is just breakfast food, anyone can make it. Not me, Aiden admitted. I'm terrible at cooking. Boiling water is about my limit. Julian laughed. You can run $1 billion company but can't scramble an egg? You really are something else, Grayson. Aiden finished his plate. I manage. Mostly takeout and quick meals, but it works. You've got to eat healthier, Julian teased. Ever tried a salad? Ugh, don't make me gag, Aiden said, laughing. After breakfast, Aiden cleared the table. I know Thomas handles your pay and everything, but do you ever take time off? See friends or family? No. I'm required to stay close to you, Julian said, though he caught on quickly to Aiden's line of questioning. Right, but you shouldn't have to be my second shadow. I don't want to get in the way of your life. Julian shook his head. My family and friends live out of state, so that's not a problem. You have my full attention until your blackmailer is found. Now, is there something specific you want to ask me, Grayson? Aiden took a deep breath. I just want to know who I'm living with. I ran my own background check on you and found nothing. That made me curious about who you really are. I want to know your story. Julian was amused that his boss had tried to dig up information on him, or at least, that's what he assumed Aiden was after. My story? Well, I'm 29, and I've been in this business for a while, Julian began. Before becoming a bodyguard, I worked as a police officer for a few years. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. My parents are Howard and Belinda McAndrew, and I have a younger sister named Becky. They all live in California, where I grew up before moving here for better career opportunities. Unless you want me to go into my hobbies and what I like to do for fun, that's pretty much it. Anything else you want to know? Aiden shook his head, feeling a little embarrassed. He hadn't expected Julian to be so forthcoming. He'd assumed Julian would dodge the questions, as he often did when certain topics came up. Actually, there is one more thing, Aiden said, hesitating slightly. What's the deal with you and Lance Joyner? That argument you two had at his office looked serious. Care to explain? Julian chuckled, a mix of amusement and exasperation in his voice. You can be so observant and yet so clueless at the same time. Lance is my ex-boyfriend, Grayson. I'm gay. Aiden's green eyes widened at the revelation. He had suspected some people might be interested in Lance, but Julian? Not his strong, no-nonsense bodyguard. He immediately felt guilty for making assumptions based solely on Julian's tough exterior. We were arguing because he made some wild accusations I wasn't fond of, Julian continued. Accusations like what? Aiden asked. That you and I were involved, Julian said calmly. He met Aiden's eyes and noticed the shock on his face. Lance is a good man, but he can be extremely jealous and territorial when it comes to me. He assumed wrong, and it frustrated me when he brought it up. That's what we argued about. Oh, I see. This isn't a problem for you, is it? Me being gay? Julian asked softly, unsure how Aiden would react. It's not something that usually comes up in conversation, and Thomas never asked, so I never mentioned it before. I don't care who you're into, Julian. I'm not judgmental. I guess I'm surprised, Aiden admitted, struggling to find the right words. You don't really seem like that type of person, and I'm sorry if that sounds narrow-minded. I really am. You can't judge someone by appearances, Grayson. People are more than what they look like. I'll say it 100 times if I have to, I'm completely gay, Julian said firmly. I understand now, Aiden whispered, feeling embarrassed. I really am sorry if I offended you. I'm not great at this kind of conversation. He ran a hand through his hair. I feel like such an idiot. Julian relaxed, reassured. You're not an idiot, Grayson. Just a little uninformed. That's fine. You can ask me anything and I'll answer. The most important thing is that we avoid awkwardness going forward. Awkwardness? Yes. I just need you to know that nothing has changed. I take my job seriously, and I would never cross any line with you, personally or romantically. You're not even, Julian paused, shaking his head. Never mind. No. Say it. I'm not what? My type, Julian admitted. You're not my type, Grayson. I'm not attracted to you. Oh, okay. Aiden felt a pang of disappointment, though he couldn't explain why. It didn't make sense for him to feel hurt. He shouldn't care, but he did. Don't get me wrong, Julian added quickly. You're a very handsome man. With someone like me, attraction isn't based solely on looks. Other factors matter too. Aiden nodded, taking a moment to process before finally asking softly, "So, what is your type?" Before Julian could answer, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out and read a text from Lance. "Holy, Lance found a match for the fingerprints from that letter. We have a name for your blackmailer." "Who is she?" Aiden asked, his stomach twisting with anxiety. Julian showed him the screen, a picture of a redhead with her personal details. Clarissa Bollinger, 344 Marley Street. Julian sprang to his feet. "We need to get dressed and pay Miss Bollinger a visit." Aiden followed, still feeling uneasy. Even though they now had a name and a face, he had no idea who she really was, or when and how they'd crossed paths. It felt like one step forward and 5 steps back. Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.